Mr. Santos? Yes. Karen Bleakley, is it true that you're really thinking about leaving New York City? Yes. Well, why? What are you talking about? I've been bested. I came in second. Second? Second in what? The Scam Artist contest, of course. I thought running a campaign on representing New Yorkers better and then spending their hard-earned money they contributed to my campaign on Botox and OnlyFans was a really scammy thing to do. I thought changing my name was pretty dishonest. And I thought lying about my entire resume, where I've worked, who I knew, and my political connections, was really dirty. But at the end of the day, I came up short. I can't compete with a Muslim communist. I mean, the guy says he's African and Asian while looking like this. Like this guy. Like, this guy's African and Asian? Really? And everyone believed him? I mean, if he can pull that off, I need to bow out. I know when I've been bested. I can't one up that. So I'm man enough to admit it. In fact, it's probably the one thing in my life I will admit. I'm so good at denying things. Eric Swalwell called me last night asking for lessons. And I mean, he screwed a Chinese spy, which I definitely have never done. Really. I mean it. No need to look into that. So farewell, New Yorkers. I leave you in the hands of the one scam artist more dastardly than me. Now skedaddle. I've got to see if Scott Pressler is live on Instagram. That was our very own Karen Bleakley talking to former New York Representative George Santos. We are able to confirm here that Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani just recently announced a major cabinet position. He is planning to appoint Sam Bankman-Fried as head of New York City's Treasury Department, due to his amazing record of handling other people's money, which speaks for itself. The 33-year-old former billionaire is planning to fulfill his duties from prison on a laptop and conduct Zoom calls as the facility allows. We are also getting reports that Fried plans to roll out a radical new financial plan in which New York City's taxes are set aside into a blockchain where he will then trade, invest, and otherwise improve them. New York City appears now to be in the hands of two scam artists, which is shocking in a place with no prior history of organized crime. Oh, please excuse me. I didn't mean to say that. I shouldn't have said scam artists a second ago. I meant to say duly elected politicians. Silly me. Back to you, Bill. Mr. Santos, welcome to the stream for today. Wow, it has been a busy month, really. But I want to begin by welcoming you to today's live stream, live Sundays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're here memeing liberals and exposing neocon fakes as the globalist wimps that they are. It's the fog and the whirlwind. I'm Josh Orkan, your host, and we're going to get started. So New York City was dealing with high cost of living, rampant crime, and a whole lot of corruption in politics. So who did they elect? A communist. Any alcoholics out there trying to drink yourself sober? No, I think you're just channeling your inner New Yorker. And in other news, Con Inc. is shocked that Tucker Carlson, a man that interviewed George Santos, Scott Adams, Cenk Uygur, and even Vladimir Putin, decided to interview someone controversial. Wow, I know. I try to grab your jaws hanging to the floor. What an unforeseen twist of fate. Decided to interview someone. Okay, I did a quick audio check. We seem to be okay. Make sure you let me know in the comments or in the chat, I should say, if it's a little bit hard to hear, but I think we're good. All right, so first of all, what you guys should know is I've talked a little bit about this. I have a new microphone, by the way, so let me know if the sound quality is coming through. And so I have a new microphone, and I'm going through a number of different updates. As you saw, I had a bit of satire there at the beginning of the show. But I'm going to do what I always do. It's still the same old show, what I've been doing here. I'm going to begin with a monologue. I'm going to have a look at the headlines, then look at comments and super chats. Actually, I don't think super chats are up for today because Entropy's been having some problems. So we're just going to stick with looking at the chat. We'll just do that. All right, so now to begin with, we're going to go into the monologue. Okay, so what happened? So I've already written about this. You can go over to my Substack. I recommend you do. It's pretty easy. It's thefogandthewhirlwind.substack.com/subscribe. I recommend that you go over there. You can find my blog. I also send out a free newsletter every so often too, so I'd appreciate that if you would support me there. But I've written on this topic a little bit. Let me adjust the light a little bit. And I wrote about Tucker Carlson having Nicholas Fuentes on. And I want to talk about this just because of the fact that it's about the response to this is what's important. It's not about Fuentes. As I've said, I'm not a supporter of his. Frankly, I don't think that this wind blowing in is the gust of wind that makes the fire even bigger. In other words, a lot of people are treating this interview Tucker Carlson conducted as somehow this is going to platform Nick into being even bigger. Like again, you've got a fire, and this is a gust of wind that's going to make it grow even larger. I don't really think so. I think that this is probably actually the beginning of the end. I think that this is going to be a gust of wind that actually probably begins the process of blowing this fire out. That there's eventually going to be a downward spiral. And it may not be tomorrow. It may not be this year. But it is going to happen. There is going to be a downward spiral. And I go into why I think that over on my blog. But this has been the response, which is what my thumbnail for the live stream is, which is Ben Shapiro saying, okay, this is literally Nazi, folks. And then the Boomer B, Seth Dillon, saying TPUSA cancels Tucker Carlson. And then a picture of Steve Deace as well with a wall of text. Why do I have the wall of text for Steve Deace, you may wonder? Because I was wanting to see what his response was. And he wrote, it was either a 10 or a 12 thesis post on X. I stopped reading when I saw him refer to Nicholas J. Fuentes as a malignant satanic force. That was what Steve Deace said, which I shouldn't be surprised. I mean, Steve Deace had basically had a meltdown whenever Tucker Carlson interviewed Daryl Cooper. So it's not really surprising that Steve Deace is going to write a whole wall of text over on X about this here. But the point is, it's not about Nicholas Fuentes. It's really more about Tucker Carlson and the reaction. See, this is what is going on right now. This is the thing. Don't pay attention to all the words and the words about this particular individual who was interviewed. What the establishment is telling you who are listening to this, is you need to get back in your box like a good little boy. What am I talking about? For years, the Republican Party has run bad candidates. They've done it by choice. They've sold our country down the river. They've made things worse and worse, not better. And more than that, they've done it intentionally. Now, every now and then, someone will run with good intentions and they get corrupted over time. But most of these people that have run for government office run because they want to get rich, run because they want to make a whole lot of money, run because they want power over you, power over our country, and they want to enrich themselves. And it's not about representing you. It's not about putting America first. It's not about closing our borders or getting out of the wars. That's how this establishment feels. And you're supposed to be content with that. You're supposed to be content with your tax cut whenever the house turns red. And that's it. And then they wag their fingers and raise their hands and promise, oh, we're going to deport them all out. Oh, we promise you that inflation's going to get better. And then they have their empty words, and you're supposed to just, clap like a seal and, yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Republican Party. Thank you so much for promising to do better next time. And then the Democrat gets in and erases any good thing that happened under the previous Republican president. And you're supposed to just gobble it all up. And this is what's going on. The GOP establishment is telling you with this response to this interview that you need to be okay with that. That someone like Tucker Carlson interviewing people different than the norm is anathema. It is forbidden, if we want to use that word, although I'm using it ironically, right? Yeah, that's kind of weird, isn't it? But the point is, you are supposed to drive in your car, listen to the Daily Wire, listen to Fox News, maybe if you're feeling adventurous, someone on the Blaze, and be content with that. And if you're older, you're supposed to listen to talk radio. And you're supposed to get all hyped up, all mad. It drives you out of the polls and you vote harder. And then you sit back and wait for the votes to be counted. And then you look at the results, and the candidate that got in, no matter who it is, whether they have an R or a D next to their name, makes the country worse and not better. And for you to dare say to the establishment, well, that's not good enough, that is dangerous to the Republican establishment. They demand that you listen to the people that Ben Shapiro has on the Sunday special and not the people that Tucker Carlson has on his show. Now, I mentioned earlier, Tucker Carlson has had Cenk Uygur on his show. I have strong disagreements with Cenk Uygur. For a liberal or progressive, he's better than some in the sense that he occasionally says stuff that's not completely insane, although he then turns around and says stuff that's just as insane. But also, I mentioned that Tucker has had Scott Adams on. Scott Adams is a cartoonist who has said some controversial things, as I mentioned earlier in my bit of satire. And then you also had Tucker Carlson had on George Santos. I am not at all a supporter or a fan of George Santos, but Tucker Carlson, guess what, is allowed to interview who he wants. He's allowed to interview Russian President Vladimir Putin because he doesn't need a permission slip from me or from anybody. He's self-employed, and he can interview who he wants. He has been attacked relentlessly and often, I'll add, by Nicholas J. Fuentes, and he decided to have the conversation anyway. And that's dangerous. See, someone like Tucker is dangerous because he isn't being controlled. See, they've tried. And Tucker Carlson talked about this shortly after Charlie Kirk passed away. What didn't pass away? After he was murdered, after he was assassinated. When Charlie Kirk was murdered, Tucker Carlson made an episode. He had on the aforementioned Scott Adams and Cenk Uygur. And one thing that Tucker Carlson said at the big monologue on his podcast, that episode right after Charlie Kirk's assassination, Tucker talked about how the neo-conservative military-industrial complex media came after him when Charlie was still alive. He had Daryl Cooper on his show. He conducted a number of controversial interviews and was starting to say, why are we sending all this foreign aid and why are we constantly getting into wars? And for that, Tucker Carlson was maligned, he was attacked, he was canceled, and the Republican establishment, as well as the rich bankers who wanted to take Tucker Carlson down, went to Charlie Kirk and started to threaten the support and say, you need to separate, you need to remove your relationship from Tucker Carlson. And Charlie Kirk said, so what? He's an adult. I'm choosing to have him on and come to Turning Point USA. So too bad, so sad. And that's why some people, although I'm not in this camp, think that that's why Charlie Kirk is dead. Some people think that's why. Because he said no to these billionaires who tried to shut down Tucker Carlson and Charlie Kirk's relationship. So that is the thing. You are supposed to listen to the establishment. And anyone that is not able to be controlled, who is semi-independent, is dangerous to this establishment. Now, let's be very clear. Let's be clear here. This, again, is not a defense of Fuentes. Again, I really want people to move past him. He has nothing to do with me. I have no reason to even continue to talk about him. I'm talking about the establishment. I'm talking about the response. As I mentioned, Steve Deace is tweeting over on X about how he's a satanic, malignant force. Yes, Steve Deace, the guy that in 2016 went on CNN and MSNBC and talked about why he couldn't bring himself to vote for Trump, whined about it and cried about it. That's Steve Deace. The one who in 2024, as soon as the Mar-a-Lago raid was happening and things looked shaky for Donald Trump, he jumped feet first into the DeSantis bandwagon. And his show became basically, this is the DeSantis network. Now, look, you can support whoever you want to support. I'm likely to support DeSantis in the future if he runs the right campaign and if I can trust him. I have to do more research about that. The point is not who Deace supported. The point is the way that he went about it. The point is that he will routinely on his show talk about the forever war complex. And then whenever anybody on the right starts criticizing our best friend trademark pending in the Middle East, he immediately starts to scream about it and strawman them and attack them. And don't get me started on Seth Dillon. Seth Dillon, look, guys, let me be very clear. I like making jokes on this show, as you saw from the satire at the top of the hour. I love humor. I love satire. The Babylon Bee, at least used to be, hilarious. It still is every now and then. I'll read a headline and it makes me laugh. But a lot of times, people that are very good at one thing don't have common sense in another. And the Babylon Bee is like that. They're pretty funny. Again, there's times that this kind of humor they engage in is a little contradictory. They will attack Trump, but then not attack the Republican establishment. I think there may be some bread being buttered, but that's just me. I don't have anything to back that up. But the point is, Seth Dillon then starts tweeting about how TPUSA needs to remove its relationship from Tucker Carlson. And then, of course, Ben Shapiro does the typical thing. He made like a 48-minute long response to Fuentes and Tucker. And this is not the first time that Ben has attacked Tucker. This is also not the first time he's attacked Nicholas J. Fuentes. In fact, when you listen to the interview Fuentes did on Tucker's show, Shapiro retweeted Fuentes and said something, and that's kind of what kicked things off with Fuentes really looking into things and going down a different route than some people. And so that's the point of all this. And the thing is, guys, I want to make this clear too. Again, I want to repeat myself, like I said earlier. It's not working. The establishment, listening to the Daily Wire and just making some cartoon that's moderately funny with Patrick Warburton, who I like a lot, that's not going to achieve long-term wins. What we need are politicians, really, and I would argue most importantly at the state level, but also over time at the national level, who really represent you and me. Now, the aforementioned Steve Deace has attacked the so-called dissident right, of which I am a member. I'm pretty clear that I'm dissident right here on this channel. And so let's nail our colors to the mast. I previously had said this, but I think I ended up privating it. So we're going to now talk about this a little bit. Let me find my address. I'm going to read it to you. Because who is the dissident right? That's kind of the important question. He's talked about, I don't know who the dissident right is. So this is who we are. For those of you who are really, really confused. When I say right, I don't mean classical liberals, neoconservatives, and politically homeless normies. I mean the real right wing. The good, normal people that have been routinely name-called by the left. They say you're racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, Islamophobic, xenophobic, and a pretty new label for us and our people, stochastic terrorists. And if the left had not been calling us this, there's no doubt in my mind that Charlie Kirk would still be alive right now. Something that I thought about is how we determine who our friends are versus our enemies. And I made an episode for my paid supporters that will eventually be released to everybody about an article written by Academic Agent, The 10 Theses of the Dissident Right. That's the title. I talked some of that episode about how to delineate friend and foe. And that's essential because our enemies often speak like we do. They critique the left. They say they're against forever wars. And they say they oppose illegal immigration. But it's vital to see who they attack. When one of us falters, these buzzards fly in our flock, pretending to be us. They then swarm down around that poor soul and start to peck him to death. Kind of like Black Lives Matter terrorists when they see white people. And it's important that we stand up for each other. I keep using terms like us and talk about our group, so who are we? I'm going to get into this. What I call the real right, and most normies call the dissident right, is a group of people united by a love for old America. We read in our books or talked to our elderly friends about the way our nation used to be. We've also had the unfortunate experience of seeing what a nation is like when it has departed from all these principles and disconnected from our past. Once we had a nation that was run by our forefathers, the descendants of our founders, and the people that helped set us free from the British crown. These people made something. They made a powerful nation made up of a particular people. This is the America we know and love. A nation where we loved our Lord so much we put in God we trust on our currency and had the 10 Commandments in our most public institutions. We swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in court with our hand on the Bible. Our founders and their grandchildren built an economy that eventually created a superpower and the best place in the world to live. A place where crime, wickedness, and hardship existed. But evil was punished and good was rewarded. Good Americans were allowed to thrive and live their lives, worshiping the Lord above as they chose. Wicked men were locked away or executed by firing squad, or most commonly with a rope. Men worked to put food on their tables, and women raised the children while also working at home. The children often followed in their father's footsteps or entered apprenticeship programs if they wanted to be in a different career field. Churches cared for the widows, orphans, and the disabled. So this is what we do want and what we love. And since we love this nation and our people, we want our nation to be reborn. How do we do that? There are a number of issues we can speak out about. After talking about what we are for, it's time now to talk about what we are against. We oppose wars that do not serve our interests, wars that serve other nations' national security while doing nothing for our own. We refuse also to slavishly worship the dollar. We want a man to be able to go work hard for a day and bring home enough to feed his wife and family, not go into debt and work his entire life so his kids can graduate with more debt and begin the cycle all over again. And we refuse to believe that the status quo is as good as it gets. Our economy has not always been this way. Anyone who critiques that is not automatically some socialist. We deny that anyone that sneaks across the Rio Grande or lands on our soil in a plane ride paid for by Warren Buffett, Tom Steyer, Mark Zuckerberg, or George Soros immediately transforms into our founding stock's descendants. They are different. They do not belong here. Most people in America know that in their guts. Calling us racist or xenophobic doesn't change it. We want to stop the expansion of government from ruining our lives, people trying to do the right thing, and use power to punish evil for a change. We see how people are being taught to hate us because of the color of our skin. We also see how children are being taught that sex outside of marriage is good, or that God made a mistake when he made them, like, I don't know, causing them to be born in the wrong body. That seems like a good place to use state power to curb evil. Now, I want to talk about these positions. We take these positions because something horrible happened. Our nation was slowly taken over by evil people who don't care about Americans. Instead, they say we should serve these liberal elites, including dying in wars for them and being taxed so our money can be used to house, feed, and clothe the invaders they've allowed in. And simultaneously taking away more and more of our rights, our ability to speak, provide for our families, worship the Lord, and advocate for ourselves and our sovereignty. Anyone that thinks white people are evil, supports the war on terror, opposes border restrictions, supports LGBT activism and their agenda, labels anyone with anything critical to say about capitalism as an idiot, and is otherwise obsessed with calling people fascists, racists, or Nazi, is not our friend. Those people are the liberals. The problem, though, is that our enemy does not always yell open borders for America or my body, my choice when talking about abortion. These people oftentimes advocate for very evil things, but they do so in such a way where it sounds good. It's in a lot of language that sounds really good, right? And I'm now departing from my notes and coming back to you with just my thoughts on this. You're not supposed to be listening to me right now. You're not supposed to be listening to Tucker Carlson and other people that are challenging the mainstream. You're supposed to drive in your car, get angrier every year as you see Indian truck drivers run people off the road. And you're supposed to say to yourself, this is fine, as the house burns down around you. You're supposed to just say to yourself over and over, like the little dog sitting in the burning house, this is fine. And for you to not say it's fine, you're told you're crazy. This is like the classic example of gaslighting. So I wanted to begin this show with that and say that this is about something bigger than who Tucker does or does not interview. This is about the establishment trying to get their control over you. And ultimately, the MAGA-conservative conflict right now is a broader, really like a right-wing phenomenon. You're going to have to ask yourself, are you going to listen to Daily Wire, The Blaze, Fox News, or are you going to listen to alternative voices that are independent? And if you do, then guess what? The Republican Party will change. And it's not about the Republican Party. The Republican Party is the stupid party. Sam Francis said this. It's quoted by a really good book, Annals of the Stupid Party, that I've recommended a lot, written by Clyde Wilson, Annals of the Stupid Party. Sam Francis said, there are two parties in America, the evil party and the stupid party. Occasionally, the two parties get together and do something that is both evil and stupid, and that's called bipartisanship. Well, guess what? The Republican Party is the stupid party. And unfortunately, right now, we don't really have a better choice. But we definitely are never going to get a better choice if we sit at home and black pill, as the young people like to say. I'm a young person, I might as well say it. So we have to do something. And the point is, it's not about voting for someone with the R next to their name. If it's 2028 and it's Marco Rubio versus, let's just say, Kamala Harris or AOC, I will not vote for Marco Rubio. There are Republican globalists that I will definitely not vote for. But if he's someone that's less than ideal, less than perfect, but still better than the alternative, I'm not going to turn my nose up at them. In fact, during the primary process, I'm going to be pushing as hard as I can for the best candidate that I see. That's all I ask for of you. I'm not asking you to go out there, as the Baptists like to say, with a pistol, basically charge into hell with a squirt gun. I'm not asking you to do that. Right now, going up there, we're going to just change Congress. That's not going to work. But what you can do is influence your local elections. You can vote for someone on a commission. You can vote for your mayor. You can vote for your governor. You can vote for your state representatives at your state house, state senate, things like that. That is very important because what can you do? You can fight if you're in a bad state, or at least a right now Republican state, to get real constitutional carry in your state. That's just an example. You can fight to go on the offense on the gay marriage issue. There's things that you can do at the state and local level. You can fight to disincentivize drag queen story hour at the local library. You can do this. You don't have to go and change, or we need to stop people from bribing our politicians. But you can do something for your local area. That's the point. That's what I ask of you. It's really not that hard. And a lot of what that means is getting off your butt. A lot of what that means is going out, networking, talking to people that are political, finding kindred spirits, and you get involved politically. You find people, there's also some dogs out there, meaning people, that have a few scars. They've been fighting against the establishment for a while. They've been beaten. Pull those people aside and talk to them. Hey, I saw that you went against the establishment here and here. How did that go for you? What went wrong? You need to coordinate. As I said in the loop that plays before the live stream, the real right wing has to be coordinated. We can't just come like a swarm of yellow jackets. No, we need to come together like the sleeping giant. We need to rouse ourselves, and we need to slowly start plotting and walking slowly and moving towards our enemies. And guess what? This sleeping giant, once he's fully awake, is going to be unstoppable. You're not alone. Let me make very clear that you're not weird. You're not alone. You know, as I read before, I read my speech where I talked about what it means to be on the real right wing. You're not an anomaly. You're not a freak of nature. You're a person who is ticked off about what you're seeing around you. What I'm telling you is it's not just enough to tweet out about we need to take America back. That's not what I'm doing right now. I'm not advocating for you to vote harder. I'm advocating for you to take political action and get power. Because ultimately, as I've said in a loop that plays before the live streams, power is the only thing these people understand. I've said this before. I'll say it again for you. What made the left get violent? Open-ended question. The chat's open. I want to hear your thoughts on everything I'm saying, by the way. What made the left get violent? Trump getting elected was part of it. Make sure, by the way, you're pressing the like button and subscribe if you're not already. What made them get violent? Trump getting elected and DeSantis doing things in Florida that they did not like. And that's when they actually started to beat people up. The other thing was when there was a less than ideal reaction during 2020. What am I talking about? Well, first, George Floyd. George Floyd, a lot of people started to say, this Derek Chauvin guy, I don't know if it's true that he's a complete racist. This Derek Chauvin guy, I'm not sure if it's real that he died from being choked. And what happened? BLM, the left, Antifa, went nuts. They destroyed things, burned down property, and hurt people. What happened after that? There were threats, death threats, many of them, when Trump so-called lost the election in 2020. See, that is what makes the left get violent. Why? The idea of Trump getting reelected was something they could not control. Trump's not even that anti-establishment. He is, in a sense, he's kind of a mixture of neocon and paleocon. But he's not hardcore like you and I are. But the point is, he was going to govern in a way they didn't like, which is why they also put out the death threats. Why did they go after Charlie Kirk? Similarly, he had power and influence over the young generation. Not even that hardcore, not even that radical right. but Charlie Kirk had power and influence over the young people. And that's the thing that these people fear. So this is why I'm advocating for you, why I'm exhorting you to take political power. This is key. And it's so important because that is how we're going to win. This is something that you have to understand, that you have to get through your heads. And so with that being said, let's now go to something else I wanted to show you. So there's a perception from a lot of people, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. Make sure that you comment because I want to hear your thoughts. Megyn Kelly, and I'm going to see, this might only come through on YouTube. I'm going to try to play it on Rumble as well. I should be able to screen share this. Megyn Kelly put out a video. Look, I will say it. I'll say it. I'm not a Megyn Kelly supporter. I'm not. I think she's just kind of an establishment shill, frankly. I think Megyn Kelly has become moderately better. She used to basically just say, yeah, whatever. I mean, she worked for, what was it? She left Fox News and went somewhere just extremely mainstream. And the thing is, she's now become so-called based on vaccines. But let's see if we can play this, because I wanted to play this for you and see what all you think.
The Republican Party needs to get its shit together. ASAP. I'm really glad we spent the past couple of weeks, as Sean Davis of The Federalist put it, policing some young person's group chat, what a podcast host said, and what the head of a think tank over at Heritage had to say. I'm really glad that the Republicans devoted so much time to that. That was a great move. Terrific move. Way to stick together, to really shine a light on what matters. The Republicans like to lose. They enjoy losing. They enjoy when they are embattled and in a losing position and complaining. They love it. They do it really well. Less good at winning, especially when Donald Trump is not there to get them over the line. The Republican Party is not strong. Donald Trump is strong. Republicans don't know how to win. They don't know who to run. They don't know what to do when daddy's not there to fly them across the finish line. And that's just been so obvious. Meanwhile, Trump is all over the Middle East while people's groceries bills are still high. They're still dealing with inflation. They're suffering. Like, that's it. OK, we're focus on domestic policy and on making people's lives better. That's really all I have to say. Those are my top line thoughts. There's a lot to get into on why this happened and so on, but that's my top line takeaway.
Okay, that's about enough of that. Sorry, I have myself muted still. As I said, I see the chat's kind of blowing up. I'm probably going to read the chat later. I'm right now still talking, and then I'm going to look at the headlines, then I'll read the chat a little bit. So do you agree? Let me know. I want to hear your thoughts on that. So I don't. Now, I think two things are true at the same time. So did anybody on the right, neocons, whatever, counter-signaling, attacking Tucker Carlson, did that affect the most recent election here in November? I don't think so. I have no way to quantify that. I don't believe so at all. I haven't seen any proof of that, any evidence of that. I think, frankly, what happened is what usually happens is Republicans just kind of got apathetic. That the Republicans were used to, well, Trump won in 2024, so we can just kind of coast. We can just kind of allow this to roll forward. We're moving with a lot of momentum, so we can just sit back and basically enjoy the win and pat ourselves on the back, that kind of thing. I think that has more to do with why this election didn't do as well. Not all these Republicans attacking Tucker Carlson. I don't see any evidence of that. Now, secondly, the rest of what she said of, Republicans like to lose, partially true, right? I think that there's an element of truth to that for sure. Because of the fact that I have eyes, right? Like, over time, it's become very clear to me that the Republican Party would rather virtue signal and look cool and actually, in many cases, placate and please the left. Like, we're going to hire Caitlyn Jenner, so-called Caitlyn Jenner, over on Fox News because we can have our own based transgender, that kind of thing. They would rather have that. They would rather say and do that and bow down to the woke mob than they would have a backbone and stand up against it, right? And so they would rather be beautiful losers, because what happens? This is what happens. The mainline, as I said earlier, mainstream Republican Party totes that line, goes along with what the left says, gives up on fighting the culture war. And then what happens? They go up to get elected, and you stay home. I'm talking to you. Because you say in your heart, that's not good enough. Why would I vote for a George Bush-style Republican? Why would I vote for Asa Hutchinson, who ran in 2024 in the primary? Remember that guy? If you're in South Carolina, why would I vote for Lindsey Graham? And you're not crazy for wanting someone better than Asa Hutchinson or Lindsey Graham. But you're supposed to be, according to the establishment. And this is the point, right? The thing is, you're supposed to be in their box, because then they can control you. And with all that said, I'm trying to think now where I want to go with this. You have to determine that something needs to change, rather than continuing to vote R no matter who, or staying home. Rather than just staying home as a protest, well, neither side was good, neither candidate was good, so I'm just going to sit home. What you need to do instead is do something about it. Get involved. And that's one thing I'm going to be doing. So one of the reasons why I'm not releasing as many episodes is because I'm doing things offline. I'm going to start doing things offline to get involved with my local area, because it's not going to get better. Again, it's not about helping the Republican Party. It's about finding guys who are really right-wing, part of the so-called dissident right, what I call the real right, and getting them into power, so that they can go against the left, they can go against the establishment, they can go in against the deep state. So that's something that I wanted to bring to you as far as that. But let me know. Say something in the chat. Also, I want to greet those of you who are listening to this on the archive that's going to go up on Spotify. I just wanted to say thank you and greet all of you guys listening to this on the archive. For those of you who are watching as well, I see I have a decent amount of people watching. But I want to hear your thoughts. Do you tend to agree that what I'm talking about with Tucker, had anything to do with a poor turnout for the election? I don't, but if you disagree, I'll read it, as long as it's in good faith. Okay, now we're not there yet. We are still talking. I am going to read, this was funny. So Zoran, this is not what's funny, but this is coincidental. So Zoran Mamdani won in New York City, which isn't really funny. It's kind of a black pill. But something that was funny is Chris Cuomo had to announce his brother's loss to Mamdani on live TV. Now, I got to tell you, from a Democrat standpoint, I was asked about this election between Zoran Mamdani and New York City. And I said a couple things. I said, number one, I don't like the guy. But in this day and time, and this goes for not just America, but other countries as well, a lot of women voted for Justin Trudeau because of his hair. Sorry, I said it. And Zoran Mamdani is not an ugly dude. He's got a decent smile. He has decent hair, decent facial hair. He can speak reasonably well. He speaks better than Joe Biden. He speaks better than John Fetterman used to. John Fetterman's getting better now, which I'm glad. I didn't want him to have long-term stroke effects. I'm glad Fetterman's getting a little bit better. The point is, though, you took this guy, this smiling guy who's decently well-spoken, and the best guy that could run against him was Andrew Cuomo. The guy that was grabbing women's butts, and his excuse was, well, I'm Italian, I'm affectionate. Well, it's not really a shock that that guy lost to Zoran Mamdani. So with all that being said, Zoran Mamdani won. Chris Cuomo then had to dissect the results. He had to talk about this. I'm looking at this on the dailymail.uk. Andrew's brother Chris was one of the co-anchors for News Nation's live coverage of the race and reacted live on air as it emerged Mamdani was the victor. Of course, I wanted my brother to live. I believe in my brother. I believe he is a tremendous operator within government, he said moments after the announcement. But he's not what Democrats want right now in their party, and Democrats win in New York City. Cuomo summarized his brother's election night failure with a simple one-line analysis. So that's kind of funny. I mean, the fact that he had to read about his own brother losing was a little bit entertaining. Now, when it comes to what I had earlier at the top of the show, where I had a bit of satire about George Santos leaving New York City, I made up why in the satire. But that's actually looking like it's going to happen. So I have an article from Newsmax. George Santos has said he's leaving New York City after the Mamdani victory. Former New York GOP Representative George Santos announced this week that he is leaving New York City following the election of Democratic Socialist candidate Zohran Mamdani as mayor earlier this week. Good luck, New York, Santos said in a video posted on X. It was nice knowing you. After 37 years, I'm out. He went on to criticize Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa for staying in the race, saying he would have dropped out to support, or he should have dropped out, to support former Governor Andrew Cuomo. Yeah, George Santos, I mean, big news alert for those of you listening. I'm not a fan of George Santos. I think he's really stupid. I think he's a scam artist and a world-class BS artist. Like, I made the joke about SBF. Yeah, like that kind of a BS artist. But Santos is like, oh, well, if Curtis Sliwa, or Sliwa, however it's pronounced, had dropped out and supported Cuomo, maybe then Cuomo would have won. I don't see that happening. I think that's exactly wrong. Curtis could never have won, Santos said. He not only could never have won, he underperformed in his 2021 election campaign by a remarkable 24 points. He added, Cuomo was by far a flawed candidate, terrible human being, but much better than what we just landed ourselves with. I'd rather the evil I know than the evil I don't want to know. Well, George Santos, congratulations on being the evil we don't want to know, which is why I'm very glad that you were removed from Congress. Man, that guy's a complete joke. So this guy won. Now, what are my thoughts? I have limited time, so I'm not even going to be able to read everything I wanted to read because the monologue went a little bit long. But y'all have been gracious. Y'all have been good. So what do I think of Zohran Mamdani winning? Well, either he will implement policies. Probably this is what's going to happen. I'm going to give you my prediction first. He will implement policies that are really hardcore democratic socialist. Things in New York's cost of living, inflation, and so on will get worse. A lot worse. Crime, which is its own thing. I want to ignore that for a moment. But crime will get worse too. But specifically the economy. Businesses will start to close or leave New York City. He will then pivot. He will then change. And then when he does so, he will change some of his policies because he doesn't want New York City to just completely basically go into a crater and go into a hole in the ground. And whenever he does change, the city will start to do better again. He will then declare victory. And the tankies, democratic socialists, libertarian socialists, and anarcho-communists will then say, well, look, I mean, he inherited a mess, and then he implemented policies, and now he dug New York City out. They will lie to you. They will lie to the country about what happened. And so that is the way I see things going. That's what I think will happen. Now, alternatively, he may get in and govern basically business as usual. He may have promised that he was going to change all this stuff. And it may be that Mamdani actually governs basically like just a regular Democrat politician. I don't think so. For one thing, that's not what the people who voted for him want. They want radical change. And look, they're not wrong to want radical change. The problem is that they voted for the wrong kind of radical change. They need someone who's going to, first and foremost, clean up the streets of New York City. That's the most important thing. If anything needs to change in New York City, it's that people should be able to walk the streets at night safely. It's that people need to be arrested and or in some cases given the death penalty for violent crime and rapes and things like that. And unless New York City actually does that, this is all just a crapshoot. Because what's going to happen if the streets of New York City get safer? Businesses are going to start doing better. It all ties together. It all lines up. That's the important thing to remember, people. So, having said that about New York City, having said that about what I think Mamdani will do, there's a couple things, though. So, if Mamdani does implement socialist policies and then changes them, and it's too little too late, New York City will just completely get worse. And then here's the good thing. Here's the white pill. So there's a lot of black pilling about Mamdani. Oh, a communist was elected in New York City. Yeah, he was. But also, if you're a conservative living in New York City, you kind of need to get out anyway. But here's the point. White pill. We get more arguments. We get another thing, another tool for us to use. Right now, the argument goes sort of like this. That wasn't real communism. Okay, so, I mean, we're looking at the USSR, we're looking at China, we're looking at these authoritarian countries in South America. That wasn't real communism. That wasn't real socialism. That wasn't democratic. Well, now we have a trial run for the country. New York City is about to be led. It'll be in January. He'll swear in. Mamdani will be the mayor of New York City. And he can decide what kind of a mayor he's going to be. And if it continues to just go downhill and exponentially get worse, which is likely, then you and I on the right will be able to point and say, there's a communist mayor, a democratic socialist mayor right there. Why is it not working for New York City? He promised to make things better. Why is it not getting better? We get another tool in our toolbox to hit the left with, because communism is not going to work. That'll be if everything just goes completely downhill. It's also possible that he will lie. He'll implement some policies and then change them and try to say, well, look, I fixed it, which is sort of what Obama tried to do, right? He inherited a really bad problem from Bush, sure, but he made things a lot worse. Similar to FDR, he inherited problems from Hoover. He then proceeded to make things a lot worse. And then what did it become? Oh, that's just the Republicans' fault. Hoover had a really bad problem happen during his presidency. I mean, there was nothing like the Great Depression. And FDR did not fix it. Eventually, everything in the economy just recovered. It was a really difficult thing, but unemployment went up under the New Deal. You don't need me to tell you that. You already know this. But same for Obama. He tried to take credit for fixing the 2008 crisis, and unemployment was bad. The economy slowly recovered. The stock market did pretty well under Obama, surprisingly. But that has to do with the robustness of the American economy, not to do with anything that Obama actually did or implemented. And he was a bad president for multiple reasons I've got into on this platform. Okay, that is. I mean, we wanted to go for about an hour. We've almost gone for an hour. Part of this show was a loop, but let me look at the chat a little bit. Oops, here we go. Let me see. Some comments from Chris Fisher writes, I'm just going to ignore some of this other guy, kind of dumb. America is the land of decline. Hope y'all Yankee Doodles love it, says Chris Fisher. Domestically, the U.S. is a crap case. Perhaps your support of genocide is part of the global view as America being a despot nation. I think he meant despot. He wrote depot. Yankees, the like, Hollywood, were famous people. Yeah, there's a lot of typos. Yeah, there's a lot of this that is just really hard to read. Yeah, well, I'm looking at chats here. We have, can you believe it, 4762. Most of what I was reading before was gibberish. Biden, Fetterman, 2028. You know, can you believe it? I think they should do that. It should be Biden, Fetterman, 2028. I've seen this on a shirt. It's a no-brainer. Or, as I've also joked about before, we could have Cardi B with a chicken wing, and it could be brainless and boneless. That's the other idea that I have. Hey, there would be a lot of publicity over it, all I'm saying. So that is looking like that's all the chats. This has been one of the most active chats that I've seen, and I appreciate all of y'all's input. What should I say in closing here? So the point is, don't be upset. Don't gnash your teeth. Don't be afraid of someone getting elected in New York. By the way, I saw a meme. It was funny. So Mamdani gets elected mayor in New York City. Someone took an outline of New York City and wrote, New York City, you forgot. You know, the whole 9/11 never forget thing. Just elected a guy who at least calls himself Muslim, who's talked about, I heard today, the fact that his aunt felt uncomfortable wearing a hijab for a while because of so-called anti-Muslim sentiments. Like, well, can you forgive people in America for having so-called anti-Muslim sentiment after Muslims took planes and ran them into buildings? which, I mean, that goes into a whole rabbit hole of, do these people actually do it themselves, or what are people paying them to do it? Haha. Do we want to go down that rabbit hole? Not on YouTube. Not right now. Not today. We'll do that for another time. That'll be more of a spicy topic I'll get into probably on Substack, which is the best way to support me. I want to remind you guys of that. Go to thefogandthewhirlwind.substack.com/subscribe. That's the best way you can support me. Yeah, I basically, what I'll do is I'll go live on Sundays. I don't go live every Sunday, but I try to. But I will release, it's bi-monthly, so usually every other Friday, I release episodes of my podcast, which is all audio, all pre-recorded. And I'm also a blogger. I'll write out my blog, which is usually just for paid supporters. But I do send out a newsletter, and the newsletter is free, so that you can go over to Substack, like I said a bit ago, and that's a good way for you to follow me. Really the best way for you to follow me, because YouTube likes taking my stuff down. Rumble is good, definitely a lot better, but Substack is the superior platform. And again, I like a lot of written form content. Make sure you guys are subscribed if you aren't already, and that you're liking the stream. I'm enjoying just hanging out with you and reading the chat. I liked the joke about federal. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to bid you adieu. I've enjoyed this. For those of you who want to listen to this later, it's not going to be on YouTube, or at least if you want to see it on YouTube, it's not going to come out for another week or so. The audio will be going up on Spotify, the majority of the audio anyway. Most of what I said, not necessarily the chats that I read, will be going up on Spotify or on Audible, Amazon Music. That's where I put out the podcast, by the way. You can find the relevant links really anywhere. Like anywhere you follow me on social media, you can find where I post the podcast. So again, the best place to follow me is thefogandthewhirlwind.substack.com/subscribe. I'm going to encourage you to subscribe on YouTube, follow me on Twitter, Rumble, and Odyssey, where I put more like video content. That's more on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey, I'll say. If you do become a paid supporter on Substack, you get exclusive content and admission into the private supporters of the Fog and the Whirlwind group chat. If you want to find me on social media, there's actually links to it in the description of YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, and Odyssey. So if you're watching right now, you can go to the description and find me on social media. It's pretty easy to find me. And so if you want to find me, I'm pretty much everywhere Fog and Whirlwind. So X is at Fog and Whirlwind. Gab is at Fog and Whirlwind. Instagram is Fog and Whirlwind as well. So I'm pretty easy to find. It's not hard. Telegram. I really love Telegram. I'm probably the most active on either X or whatever we're calling it, Twitter or Telegram. I use those a lot. Go to t.me/Fog and Whirlwind if you want to follow me on Telegram. And I'm planning to be here a week from today on Sunday. Like I say, I usually go live Sunday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. God bless you. Take care. Have a great evening.